My name's Eric Welander and welcome to Windy Tech, where we talk all about smart home tech in mostly the Apple ecosystem. Today, we're going to talk about the first smart home product purchase you should make. So personally, I've bought a bunch of smart home tech over the years, and of course, being that into it enough that making this YouTube channel, I love smart home tech and have all kinds of it. And maybe you do too, and I'd love to hear in the comments below. I think we'd all love to hear if you've gotten really into smart home tech, if you had to completely start over or tell someone else to completely start from scratch, what would you buy first? Why and what would you do differently now? So I think the best option for an accessory is a smart plug, and that's really for a few key reasons. The first is that there's no hub required. So many products these days, the smart home stuff, you have to get some kind of a starter kit that has a hub in it, and then you plug that into your network, and that's how the accessories communicate. And that can just be an extra thing, an extra barrier, more money you have to spend up front, which isn't really great when it's sort of your first experiment around this whole topic. Another thing is that it doesn't require any kind of complex installation. It works in pretty much any living situation. You know, you can put these into an apartment or some other place that you rent. You could probably even get a smart plug to work in a college dorm, depending on your Wi-Fi situation. And smart plugs, given that they're so simple, they just control electricity going on or off. So you can, of course, use them for some of the more obvious things like lamps, but you can also have them for fans. So as it gets hot in the summer, maybe you want to have a fan turn on or off certain times. You can use them for space heaters in the reverse in the winter, maybe when you want to turn those on. Also for things in the kitchen, like turning on or off a crock pot, or turning on or off a coffee maker or an espresso maker. Maybe getting your espresso machine to turn on and warm up in the morning is just really nice sometimes. Also, holiday or string lighting, that can be really nice setup, as well as some more random other things like heating blankets, or making sure that your hair dryer or hair curlers are turned off. By putting a smart plug in that circuit, you can just ensure from wherever you are that yes, the electricity's cut off to those devices. Another thing as well is a television or kind of home theater system. I use smart plugs in this studio to do these lights. So just setting up this studio, I tell Siri or Alexa one simple command, and then boom, everything happens and all these smart plugs are turning on and off. Smart plugs are great, but if you go search Amazon or anywhere else, there's a bajillion different brands out there. So which ones are really good to look at, and what do you need to consider when you're evaluating different options? Now, the big thing with any smart home purchase, and I think this is especially true with your first one, is which smart home ecosystem do you want to be a part of, or multiple ecosystems? And there's really three big ones out there. There's the Amazon sort of Alexa and Echo system. There's the Google Home system with Google Assistant, and then Apple HomeKit that works with Siri. Ideally, you can get a smart plug that works with all three of the big systems, so you don't really have to make that decision up front now. But think about it as far as what kinds of smartphones do you use. If you tend to be like me and use more iOS, then it might be worth maybe spending a few extra dollars and getting a HomeKit compatible smart plug. Another key part is, where are you going to be using these smart plugs? There are ones that are specifically rated for outside and are more waterproof and weather resistant, and you definitely want to use those if you're doing something outside. And I would say the last key thing is just to avoid brands you've never heard of or don't tend to have a lot of reviews around them on the internet. These things are dealing with electricity and turning it on and off and stuff where you really just don't want them overheating or doing some kind of crazy shorting out over time. It's just probably better to just stick with trustworthy brands that you know are going to make a reliable product. Personally, I've had a lot of really great success with Belkin Wemo. They have a few troubling reviews on their Amazon page, but personally I've never seen any of those issues. I have the latest smart plugs from them, quite a number of them. They've never paid me anything. You know, they're not paying me to say that at all. None of these companies are. I mean, I'm a tiny little YouTuber right now, so no one's making any kind of deals with me. Their app works out okay, and their smart plugs support all three big ecosystems, so you can use them with HomeKit and the Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa, which is really nice. They also have a hub which adds some additional functionality, allows you to support some of their older smart plugs with Apple HomeKit, but it's really not essential at all. So if you see the hub for Belkin Wemo, you don't need to worry about buying it. You can just get the smart plugs, they'll connect to your Wi-Fi, you'll be fine, especially for getting started. Now, the other brand that I've recently purchased smart plugs from is TP-Link. I've been using their switches in my house for networking and some of their other products for years, and they've been doing quite a line of smart home products. Unfortunately, they don't support Apple HomeKit out of the box. Keep talking about that it's coming soon. One of these days they'll support HomeKit, but they tend to be maybe a little less expensive than the Belkin Wemo switches, depending on when you find them on Amazon. But so far, in a couple weeks of use, I've been really impressed with TP-Link switches and would totally recommend getting them. But again, I've been using Belkin Wemo switches for years and only recently started using TP-Link switches, so consider that for what it's worth. Another brand I've used is iDevices. Now, they also support HomeKit along with Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa. One of the cool things about their switches is they come with a built-in night light. So in a lot of these smart home apps like HomeKit, you can then control the light that's on the outside of the plug as well as whatever's plugged into the plug itself. So you can trigger a scene in a room maybe where the lamps go off, but then the night light on the plug itself lights up and can even light up to a specific color, which can be a nice touch. Now, I will say my iDevices single, I only bought one smart plug from them a while back, and it doesn't work anymore. I used it for about 2 years and something shorted out in it, but I've heard great success from other people. I kind of consider that a fluke of my own. I've never had that happen with any other smart plug, but just to call that out. iDevices also has a really great outdoor smart plug that works with HomeKit, and Shane Watley here on YouTube did a really great review kind of story of him using that smart plug a couple weeks ago. I'll link to that video in the description. Now, the one thing to say, a big downside on iDevices is I really don't like the way their app looks or works. It's very cluttered to me. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I tend to just control those devices, most accessories, in Apple's HomeKit app. That's tend to be where I go. I think Apple's HomeKit app tends to be very good. So it's not a huge downside for me, but if you plan on using their app, again, none of these apps from the manufacturers are amazing, but I'd say iDevices is definitely lacking more than something like a Belkin Wemo app. So there are a bunch of other brands I've heard of and read about or watched videos on around the internet, and I'll put a list of this all down in the description below, and then also star the ones that are HomeKit compatible. iHome smart plugs, Koogeek, Amazon's brand own brand of smart plugs, VOCOlinc, Sylvania, Eve, Xiaomi Mi, which is an interesting one to call out because in the US, the Xiaomi Mi plugs are exclusively available at Walmart for $15. So they're only compatible with Google Home right now, officially out of the box, but for $15 is about $10, maybe $15 less than a lot of these other smart plugs. So definitely a cheap way to get into the market if working with Google Assistant is totally sufficient for you. And then Lutron has some smart plugs. I've done some Lutron reviews on their smart switches, but it looks like their smart plugs also require the smart hub to exist already. And then Best Buy, in their Insignia brand, which I've reviewed, their garage door opener, they also have smart plugs, but they've discontinued them. So if you still see them on sale, probably not the best brand to pick up for smart plugs. Now, once you get these things in your home, they're really no good unless you start triggering them. Now, one of the key things that's kind of obvious, but just to call out here, if you have an outlet that's controlled by a light switch in your wall, you don't want the smart plug to go into it, because the smart plug is going to, regulate the electricity going out to whatever's plugged into it. But if the electricity is shut off coming to the smart plug, then the smart plug goes offline. You can't use it, so don't hook it up to a switched outlet. You really want these to be on a plug that's always going to be on. So one of the simplest ways to get going with this is just use the manufacturer's app and set up some basic time triggers, or some of them will let you also do sunrise and sunset. And that's really nice to say, have a lamp go on at sunset and then turn off automatically at a certain period of the evening. It could also be great for, let's say, a fan during the day that, regardless of whether you're home or not, you want this fan in like the living room to turn on and just move air around. And then, you can have that turn on at a particular time in the morning and then turn off in the afternoon automatically. And I think those are such nice uses of smart plugs, because they can just completely remove a problem. You don't have to think about that anymore. It just automatically happens. Hopefully you found this video interesting, useful. Give it a thumbs up down below if you did. It helps others find it. And then subscribe to this channel if you aren't already for more videos on smart home tech, more in the Apple ecosystem usually than this, but I really wanted to make this video, which is kind of less related to the Apple smart home stuff that I usually talk about. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.